Thank you, Chairman Turner and committee members. I'm excited for the opportunity to lay out House Bill 3003. More than a quarter of all undergraduate college students are raising kids, and about 44% of them are doing so without the support of a spouse or a partner. 80% of those single parents in college are women. These students have to balance their work and school lives with parenting. However, even as the percentage of student parents enrolled in institutions of higher education goes up, the accessibility resources offered to assist them have remained stagnant. Additionally, data relating to these Texas student parents and their unique needs is almost non-existent. So HB 3003 requires public colleges and universities to designate one employee on campus to serve as a student-parent liaison officer. They'll be responsible for providing information on support services and other resources to student parents, including public benefit programs, health coverage, employment and transportation assistance, and academic success strategies. Establishing a student-parent liaison will both ensure that resources and support are offered to parents attending college without requiring the hiring of a new full-time employee, and that information on their unmet needs and how best to address them is collected. At this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions and respectfully reserve the right to close.
All right, thank you, Representative Talarico. Members, any questions? All right, we have a few witnesses, and we'll reserve the right to close.
Thank you, sir.
The chair calls Renee Webster.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please state your name, who you represent, and your position on the bill.
My name is Renee Webster, and I represent the Young Invincibles. Thank you, members of higher education community, for taking the time to hear my story. My name is Renee Webster, and I'm the proud parent of my wonderful 2-year-old Messiah.
Ms. Webster, just to interject, you are for the bill, in favor of the bill?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Sorry. My son Messiah is one of my biggest motivators in my life and one of the biggest reasons why I want to go back to school. However, our journey to get to where we are now has not been easy. I grew up in the foster care system, which meant I had to move around several times. I did not earn my high school diploma until I was 20. Immediately after getting my diploma, I decided to enroll in Austin Community College in 2016, ACC. The process to get there was tough, but I worked with a foster youth case manager to help me get into college. I attended ACC full-time for 2 semesters. In the midst of my higher education journey, I found out that I was pregnant and I had to drop out in 2017. Dropping out of college was a difficult decision, but I had no other choice. I had no family support to depend on, nor anyone else to advocating for me. I was basically alone. Near the end of my pregnancy, at 8 months pregnant, I was evicted from my housing. Shortly, 3 weeks later, while being homeless, I gave birth to Messiah. Figuring out how to care for a newborn while being homeless was one of the most stressful experiences ever. I applied for a program in Austin to help me with housing, but remained on the waiting list for almost 2 years. I ended up relocating to Dallas, Texas, with my 5-month-old baby to stay in a shelter. Fast forward to 6 months ago, I was sleeping in a van until LifeWorks and Echo, 2 programs that help folks like me find housing, helped me find a stable place for my son and me. We finally have a safe and stable place to sleep. Even though my housing situation has gotten better for the time being, my dreams to return to college and pursue a degree in law enforcement are still on hold. I have been told I would lose child care support if I decided to turn to school. There is no possible way I could succeed in college if I don't have child care covered. From my experience with homelessness and higher education, the resources never seem easy to find. I had to fight for myself and dig up these resources to help my situation with little to no guidance from anyone. This is why I support the parent bill, because it would finally give parents the overdue support they urgently need to succeed in higher education. All we want to do is contribute to society and better ourselves for our children and families. But we also need someone advocating for us and making sure we can get across the finish line and graduate. I want to go back to school and finish my degree, not only to succeed in life and raise my son, with hopefully more financial resources, but also wanted to give him someone to look up to because I didn't have parents to look up to. All I need is a little support to get there. Thank you. Renee Webster. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Thank you, Ms. Webster. Thank you for very compelling testimony and for sharing your story with us today. Representative Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here. And I hope you heard the testimony before on another bill where there was an effort to talk about how we could recruit more police officers. And it sounds like you're talking about that's a field that you want to go into?
Want to recruit somebody to work with college students that are parents. Somebody that can work with us on the resources that we need. When I did go to college when I was pregnant after I had my son, it was very difficult finding childcare, and the school, their hands were pretty much tied, so I just had to drop out.
Well, I know that you said that you wanted to further your education because you want to take care of your son and you want your son to have somebody to look up to, and I think you've already demonstrated that your son has somebody to look up to. Your perseverance in doing this with your own resources within yourself to do it is very commendable, and you did a very good job talking with us today. Thank you for taking the time to do this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Wilson. Oh, Ms. Webster. Hold. Yeah. Few more questions. That's okay. Yeah, you're fine. You're fine.
I'm sorry to make you continue to languish here, but have you ever testified before a committee before?
No, I haven't. Actually.
You're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you so much, because frankly, it's much larger than this. While I find this an excellent bill, Representative Talarico, I will tell you that this is just one more notch that basically tells us that we're not doing enough as those who age out of foster care for the transition to life. And so, again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. It was very well done, and thank you for sharing your story. It helps us a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Am
All
I
right.
good to go?
Yes, now you may leave. Yes, thank you. You're good to go. Thank you very much. The chair calls Isabella Valle-Voyles. I hope I'm getting that close to correct. Good morning. Please state your name, who you represent, and your position on the bill.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman Turner and members of the Higher Education Committee. My name is Isabella Valle-Voyles. I'm an 18-year-old young advocate for Young Invincibles, and I am the daughter of a former student parent and teen parent. Thank you for taking the opportunity. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify today in favor of HB 3003. My mother, Mary Bali, is a strong role model who works very hard every day to care for me and my siblings, but her path has been unnecessarily hard, and she has struggled to achieve economic success. Due to factors such as supporting her children, working full-time, and not having the proper support or resources during her time in college, it took my mom 10 years to partially complete a bachelor's degree in sociology, which couldn't pay the cost of living for our family. Unfortunately, this degree and its associated courses were not necessary for her ultimate career as a nurse. Yet she went down this path because she had limited guidance and a support at her college. She later returned to finish an associate's degree in nursing, which would sustain our family. My parents have loved and supported me unconditionally. However, growing up, we struggled with housing and food insecurity. Before I was born, my mother was a single parent to my brother, and she took out student loans to pay for his childcare, while working and attending school full-time. When I was born, my mother attained a job at a child care program in a domestic violence shelter where I could attend cost-free. She also worked at a co-op grocery store and took home recently expired food to pay for us to eat. My brother and I moved a total of 18 times before our teens. The only house we could afford was filled with mold, very small for a large family, and needed many repairs. I spent my childhood putting up drywall, creating furniture, and preparing to make our space a safe home. We spent our Saturdays at the recycle center looking for leftovers to build a house. My parents worked hard to hide the struggle of not having money and made games out of searching through recycle centers, thrift shops, and clearance aisles. But at the end of the night, my siblings and I could feel the hardship of never having enough to make ends meet. During this time, my mom was still continuing her education. As my mom became more familiar with the higher education system, she gained knowledge concerning what program and courses she realistically would need to take to pursue her career. She then enrolled in a master's program in nursing and behavioral health for a nonprofit, which she finished in 3 years and describes as extremely beneficial to her career. She's told me many times that she would have been able to finish her bachelor's degree in a timely manner and at a lower cost if only she would have had someone to discuss with her what courses and majors she realistically needed and had received support as a student parent. Over the 16 years she pursued her education, she accumulated $120,000 of student loans plus interest. This now adds up to over $200,000 worth of debt. My mom was able to take out loans due to being a teen parent. She had no familial support with income, housing, or resources. At 18 years old, she was given 7% interest loans with almost no information about what that meant long term or help with securing more assistance or scholarships. My mother worries she might never pay off her loans and will pass them on to me. She's unable to profit from her work because she has to focus on paying off her loans and supporting a family of 6. It's negatively impacted her credit. She went into bankruptcy, and she's unable to save for her future. My mother has worked very hard to save money for me to go to college, but the barriers she faced as a student parent has made this extremely difficult. My mom is one of the strongest women I have ever met, and despite her extreme intelligence, work ethic, and spunk, it took her over a decade to learn how to navigate resources necessary for a student parent. Once she completed her education, our family circumstances improved drastically. Completing her education shouldn't have been so hard, and had she had the support of a student-parent liaison and knowledge about available resources, I'm 100% certain that she would have finished school and started her path to financial success much quicker. Her barriers cause me to worry about my own financial future and constantly feel 3 steps behind because that is where we were stuck for so long. I urge the committee to pass HB 3003 for future generations of student parents like myself. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The chair calls Fedora Galasso. Good morning, Ms. Galasso. If you would state your name, who you represent, and your position on the bill.
I'm Fedora Galasso. I'm the Southern Regional Director for Young Invincibles, and I am for the bill.
All right. Before you get started, I know I think you're providing us some written testimony, which we very much appreciate. So we will review that. If you would just tell us your story, kind of what you want to say about the bill.
Great. So throw me for a loop there. So my name is Fedora Galasso, and I'm the Director for Young Invincibles, and we work hand in hand with young people across the state, ages 18 to 34. Over the last year and a half, we spent time interviewing, meeting with young women across the state who are student parents to listen to their stories and understand the hardships that they face as they try to access resources such as healthcare or childcare, etc. The thing that we heard most is that these young student parents need support. They need assistance in navigating the system, not only to access resources for themselves, but also for their children. They also need guidance in helping to navigate the higher ed system. For any student, this is a very overwhelming system. Many student parents don't have other types of support in their families or from their families, and so it really is necessary to have that extra support from the school. We talked to many students, and I included stories from 3 young women that we spoke with who talked about their struggles with being in and out of school. One of our young ladies took about a decade to finish an associate's degree. One young lady paid it out of pocket when she was eligible for a Pell Grant. So we just have a lot of needs in this population, and we know that research shows that having a person that is there at a school that will help these student parents navigate the system will help with their overall outcomes. Another big thing that we found when trying to really understand this issue was that here in Texas, there's no data around young student parents. We couldn't figure out like how many student parents attended, various universities or community colleges, much less understand what their outcomes were. Whether they were transferring to another school or whether they were completing their education. At the end of the day, there are 1 in 4 students who are student parents. This is a huge population that will affect the success of Texas, and we know that this is a tried and true method that can actually help with their college completion, and we urge the committee to pass the bill.
Great. Thank you for your testimony. Members, are there any questions? Thank you very much for your excellent testimony.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill 3003? Representative Wally. I think they are. Yeah. All right. Chair calls Rex Peebles, the coordinating board.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Chair, members of the committee. Rex Peebles, Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board on the bill.
Representative Wally.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rex, hearing the testimony, I know that it's not anecdotal as far as finding out how many students or parent students we have in all of our systems. Does the coordinating board have any statistics in relation to that group of students, special type of student?
No, we do not have any data. One of the things this bill does, though, does require the institutions to report to us and for us to collect that data.
Okay. But other than, I know y'all are a repository of a lot of data.
Yes.
Some used and some not. But this, in your opinion, just in general, would this be helpful for the coordinating board to gather in an effort to reach this type of student?
Well, I think in terms of reaching the goals of 60 by 30,
Right.
This is a population that we certainly need to get to and through college. And it's like a lot of the other groups that we've identified liaisons for and identified particular offices at campuses to be there as a sort of center for students to go to for resources would certainly be helpful.
Okay. Thank you, Rex. Thank you, Chairman.
Yep. You bet. Thank you, Representative Wally. One question I have, the bill says each institution of higher education shall designate. So under that definition, that would include community colleges,
Yes, sir.
right, and four-year general academic institutions. Would it also include postgraduate institutions?
That definition would also include, yes, the health-related institutions.
Health-related,
They're
law
oftentimes
schools.
only graduate school.
Law schools as well.
Yes.
All right, so every public institution. Right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Oh,
I'm sorry.
Rex, I spoke too soon.
Yeah,
I'm on back.
That's what I get for trying to do two things
All
at
right.
once.
That's all right.
Read and listen.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In looking at this bill, I'm trying to look at the parameters here, and this is parent-student, so it could be both married and not married.
Yes.
Okay, I got you. All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, anyone else? Thank you. All right. Now, is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill 3003? Seeing none, Chair recognizes Representative Talarico to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. There's not much more I can say that Renee, I think, already said so eloquently. This bill is so important to me professionally, but also personally, as someone who was born to a single mother who didn't get a chance to go to college. These Texans are going to superhuman lengths to better themselves, their families, and their communities. And I think, like Renee said, they just need a little bit of help to get over the finish line. And I think the very least we could do, is at least establish a point person at each campus to give them resources and to collect data. And hopefully we can do much more than that at a later point. If there are no other questions, then I ask for favorable consideration, and I close.
Members, any further questions? All right. Thank you, Representative Talarico. Oh, Representative Wilson.
Once again, I can't get to that, but I just want to make sure I understand totally that really this isn't saying, and I'm looking at the summary here, create these resources. It's just basically if the resources preside, there's an information source to provide what those resources are and how to gain access.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And as you heard from the testimony, oftentimes there are resources and these student parents aren't aware of them or aren't told about them. So this is distributing information.
Great. So it's not like, for example, transportation. You now have to create a transportation model to assist them. It's just information to
That's right.
how to get that.
In fact,
Okay.
it doesn't require institutions of higher education to even hire a new employee. They can just
Right.
designate a current employee as that point person, that liaison.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Wilson.
Members, other questions? Thank you, Representative Talarico.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members.